Welcome and good day to all. We are the Group 4, your host for this session on World Culture Geography video about Asia. I am Jason Stein Christian Lunch, your host for the historical backgrounds of our country chosen Malaysia. Ancient Malaysia history. Did you know that Negrito Aborigines were considered to be the first groups of people that inhabited the Malaysian peninsula? Well, this is the fact during the 100 BC. When the Proto-Malays, which made up of seafarers and farmers, they made the Negritos Aborigines move away into the jungles and hills. This is because the Proto-Malays came from China and were more technologically advanced than to the comparison of the Negritos. After the Proto-Malays came the Duetero Malays, in which were made up of different people, made up of Arabs, Chinese, Indians, and Proto-Malays and Siamese. With a couple of years later, after the arrival of the Dueto Malays, this rise to the Hindu kingdoms during the 100 BC until to the 1400 AD. During this period, Malaysia's culture dramatically changed. With the arrival of the Indians initially went to Malaysia into search of the mystical place called as the Land of Gold. Although Malaysia was not the place that they were looking for, they still continued in searching until they find gold, spices, and aromatic woods. In the addition of trade, the Indians introduced Hinduism and Buddhism into the peninsula. This can be seen into the Indianized kingdoms during at that time. And their traditional ways of Malayan weddings is very similar to Indian weddings. Now, let's go to the Golden Age of Malacca, which existed from 1400 AD to the 1511 AD. Chinese and Indian Arab records show that the Srivaja, to be trading area of the region, declined in Srivaja's influence, since the Hindu kingdoms of Malaysia weren't very strong during the time of the Central Power. This was taken over during the colonization of Malaysia, when Malacca's power was successfully quickly extinguished during the arrival of the Portuguese. Since the Arabs weren't allowing vessels to be piloted by non-Muslims and harbors during that era, the Europeans realized they needed a trading port of their own, and this has led to the Malaysian colonial during the 1511 AD to the 1957 AD. At this time, England did monopolize Malaysia in tin mining tremendously. This helped with the Pangkor Agreement of 1874. This agreement was the result in internal fighting among the Malayan kingdoms and over control to the Perak throne. And now, let's go to the independence of Malaysia. This is before the start of World War II. During the late 18th centuries and 19th centuries of Malaysia, Great Britain established colonies and protectorates in the area of current Malaysia. These were occupied by Japan during the 1942 and 1945 World War II in 1948. The British territories of Malay Peninsula formed by the Federation of Malaya, which came to the independence of 1957. Malaysia's country was formed in the 1963 when the former British colonies of Singapore and East Malaysian states of Sabah and Sarawak on the northern coast of Borneo joined the Federation. The first several years of the country's history were marred by the communist insurgency. Indonesians confront with Malaysia, Philippine claims to Sabah, and Singapore's secession from the Federation in 1955. During the 22-year term of Prime Minister Mahathir bin Mohamad, born from 1981 to 2003, Malaysia was successful diversifying its economy from independence on exports and raw materials to expansion on manufacturing services and tourism until today.
Malaysian geography. Malaysia is located in the southeast of the Asian continent. Is divided into two main parts. Peninsular Malaysia has 40%. The land down on the map of Peninsular Malaysia is Tanjung Piai, while East Malaysia, Borneo takes about has 60% of the land of the Borneo, with only two islands shared by the three nations along the Cyprus. The while 80% population lives in Peninsular Malaysia and only about 20% live in Borneo. Malaysia, Peninsular Malaysia is located between Thailand in the north and Singapore in the south, and the two provinces Sabah and Sarawak located in Borneo. The capital city is Kuala Lumpur, over 1.6 million inhabitants in the city center like Subang, Petaling, Java, and etc. Malaysia is the one big pristine jungle. The national park called Taman Negara contains of the world's oldest primary rainforest. Kinabatangan River is a narrow stretch of rainforest, completely chopped for palm oil plantation and bioindustry. In Malaysia, there are no active volcanoes that are occasionally felt but usually don't take place on the Malaysian grounds. On the islands of Borneo in the state of Sabah, Malaysian highest mountain is found Mount Kinabalu. Is high meters long. The mountain is possible to climb for Malaysian climbers. However, the stunning views from the top will leave you with longer memories.
Good day everyone, I am the one who tackled the economy of the Malaysia. According to the World Bank, Malaysia is an upper middle country. The manufacturer sector, including electronics, has emerged as a leading economic sector, followed by the agriculture, livestock, forestry, and fisheries, and the retailing and hospitality sectors. The Malaysian economy registered a positive growth of 5% in the first quarter of 2022. Malaysia is a tropical country which comprises Peninsular Malaysia, consisting of 11 states and the Federal Territory of Kuala Lumpur. Sabah, including the Federal Territory of Labuan and Sarawak. 79% of the population is located in the Peninsular Malaysia. The economy of Malaysia is the third largest in the Southeast Asia and the 34th largest in the world in terms of GDP. According to the Global Competitiveness Report, as of 2021, the Malaysian economy is the 25th most competitive country in the economy in the world. The national capital of Malaysia is Kuala Lumpur. Their population is over 33.11 million as of 2022, and their GDP is 439.373 billion. They rank as the 34th as of 2022. Their GDP by sector, the agriculture having 8.19%, their industry is 35.93%, their services is 54.77%, and and their unemployment is 4.5% as of 2022. Malaysians enjoy a relatively affluent lifestyle compared to many of its neighbors in Southeast Asia. This is due to a fast-growing export-oriented economy, a relatively low national income tax, highly affordable local food and transport fuel, as well as a fully subsidized single-payer public healthcare system. Malaysia has a newly industrialized market economy, which is relatively open and state-oriented. The Malaysian economy is highly robust as diversified with the export value of high-tech products in 2022 standing at 92.1 billion US dollar, the second highest in Asia. Malaysia exports the second largest volume and value of palm oil products globally after Indonesia.
The language of Malaysia is Malay, and it is the official language of Malaysia spoken in majority of population, and it is extremely taught in the country's public school system. Aside from Malay, English is widely spoken in Malaysia. Mandarin and Hokkien are also spoken throughout the nation, particularly by people of Chinese ethnic ancestry. Tamil is another widely spoken language in Malaysia, primarily by people of Indian origin. Malaysia also has a huge number of indigenous language, where the 137 languages spoken in Malaysia, with some having their own dialects and other being
Malaysian Standard English, or called MYSE, often known as Manglish, is a language with origins in British English. It is mostly used in education, with limited usage in other areas of the country. The bulk of the people, 60%, can speak it, albeit its using is declining. Mandarin is the most frequently spoken version of Chinese. This language is extensively spoken by Malaysian.
Malaysian culture. Within Malaysian society, there is a Malay culture, a Chinese culture, an Indian culture, a Eurasian culture, along with the culture of the indigenous groups of the peninsula and North Borneo. A unified Malaysian culture is something only emerging in the country. The important social distinction in the emergent national culture is between Malay and non-Malay, represented by two groups: the Malay elite that dominates the country's politics, and largely Chinese middle class whose prosperous lifestyle leads to Malaysia's shift to a consumer society. The two groups mostly live in urban areas of the Malay Peninsula, West Coast, and their sometimes competing, sometimes parallel influence shapes the shared life of the Malaysia citizens. Sarawak and Sabah, the two Malaysian states located in Borneo, tend to be less influential part of the national culture, and their vibrant local cultures are shrouded by the bigger, wealthier peninsula society.